Annenberg Media.
With additional support from Equicor Equitable HCA Corporation, the Good Listening Employee Benefits Company.
We do not all start life on an even playing field. But the rules are that we all play it by the rules of honesty and ethics.
Before I took that case, I had to agree that I would do anything ethical to defend that man.
So I'm going to just do the best I can. Is it imperfect? You bet. Is it awful? Well, maybe so.
Isn't there a point in a civilized society where one man has to be willing to step outside the system and say, no, I cannot do this because it's wrong?
I think we're at that point, which is nice in the sense, ethically, where we don't have the rules to protect us. We have to agonize with ourselves and our conscience.
Competition in the marketplace was at the heart of Adam Smith's vision in The Wealth of Nations. But today, one can buy everything from cars to clothespins, but the hottest commodity in the market seems to be no individual product, but entire conglomerates. In the 1980s, corporations are merging with and acquiring other corporations at an astounding rate, and the amount of money involved boggles the mind. From Wall Street to Main Street, the impact has been tremendous. But where immense amounts of money change hands, ethical concerns also arise. Whose best economic interests are paramount? Does the government have a role to play in this game of high finance? This program explores the hypothetical case study of a corporate takeover. Our moderator is Louis Caden.
I'm Harry Oldman. Mr. Mercer, one day I call you up and ask you if you'll come up to my office because I want to talk to you about a pet project of mine. We're spending a great deal of money on a long-term research program to develop a hypersonic airplane that will take people from New York to Tokyo in 2 or 3 hours. All of a sudden, I slump back into the couch, and I tell you that I can't feel anything on my left side. My speech starts to slur. They take me over to the hospital, and you get a call from the doctor who says it's too early to tell, but I think it's a stroke. I can't tell how serious. It's now 3:30 in the afternoon. You're getting ready for an appointment that you had scheduled some time ago with Miss Quinn, who's a reporter for a national news weekly, and she asked to come over to talk to you about where Peachtree is headed. Do you go ahead with the interview?
We go ahead with the interview, but we avoid what's happened to Harry at this point.
Well, let's try the interview. Miss Quinn, do you want to interview Mr. Mercer?
Yes, Mr. Mercer. I've come here because I'm especially interested in the long-term research and development program that Mr. Oldman was talking about. And by the way, where is he? I expected him to be here for this interview.
He may be back later.
But why isn't he here?
Well, Harry's got his own agenda. He's not here today.
Is there some reason that you don't want me to talk to Mr. Oldman?
Well, my time is limited, and we were going to talk about our long-term prospects, and I'd just as soon that we got on with it.
Mr. Mercer, you're not going to tell her about Mr. Oldman's condition?
Not at this point, because I don't know anything about his condition.
The doctor called you and told you it looks like a stroke.
Yeah, but he doesn't know either. It looks like a stroke. We'll have to wait till we get a good response.
Mr. Beret, suppose you were conducting the interview with Ms. Quinn. You tell her about Mr. Oldman's condition?
I would say that he's ill. He's been taken to the hospital, and we do not know the consequences of the event.
Suppose Harry, as he went out the door with his slurred speech, said, Mr. Beret, one thing I ask you, don't tell anybody about this. Does that change your mind?
No.
Why?
Because I believe there's an obligation to the stockholder and to the other stakeholders. And as a consequence, I think we must convey that news because it's important news to the organization.
I might add exactly on this, if I'd been doing the interview with these two people and then I accepted what Bob said and we went on and talked about R&D, then the story would come out later that he had lied to me and he'd given me false information. I would have a very strong feeling about him and his company and what he said.
What about that, Mr. Mercer?
Whereas the other side, I wouldn't feel that way.
I didn't lie to you. I just did not give you information I didn't have.
You did lie to me. I said, where is he? And you completely concealed the fact that he was. I said, where is he? Expected to be here? Oh, well, he'll come back sometime. That's simply totally misleading me, and you did it deliberately.
Suppose in the middle of the interview, you got another call from the doctor. You went off into a side room and took it, and the doctor said, that's the diagnosis. It was a stroke. We can't tell how serious. We'll have to wait and watch the next few days. Do you tell her after the second phone call from the doctor?
I'm not interested in telling her at this point, no.
And so then what will happen is that when it comes out, I will say, doggone, there I was, and here's this story, and it's right in the, it may be in the obits next I know. I don't know what you're going to say, take Mr. Oldman next. And you didn't tell me, and you deliberately misled me. I have a whole different view of how I can trust what you say or your company says in the future.
Suddenly we don't get along, Jane.
Suddenly. It was inevitable, Bob.
Mr. Buffett, if you were a major shareholder in Peachtree, would you want to know this information about Harry's condition?
I would want to know. It would depend on a number of other conditions, depend on how important I thought that Harry was to the company.
Harry's very important.
Well,
he's the spiritual leader, identified that way in the community.
If he's important, I would want to know.
How would you react to Mr. Mercer not telling you? He says he's not going to tell Miss Quinn.
He'll probably tell me.
He'll probably tell you. Mr. Mercer, is that right?
Sure, I'd tell him.
If he called you up, you'd tell him. If she calls you up, you're not going to tell her.
We had a purpose here for this interview, and I want to see that purpose take place, and I want to see the company's forward plans promoted and developed.
You want to use me as a promotional arm and a promotional tool rather than somebody getting out the facts about the company, which is not my interest. I am not your PR department.
And Jane, you understood that when we agreed to make the appointment and have the interview, because that was the subject.
Mr. Flum, should they tell her Harry's condition?
Well, at the very least, I would tell her that he was ill, and I did not want to discuss it any further. And you create legal liabilities if you were to put out false information about it, and you would also create insider trading liabilities if you gave selective persons that information. Because in this particular case, the law and fairness seem to coincide.
Mr. Lyman, if Mr. Mercer asked you first whether he should tell her about Harry's condition, what would you say?
I'd say you have to say that he's in the hospital or cancel the interview.
You can't mislead her.
You cannot
Why?
mislead her. Well, I'll give you two reasons. One is the legal reason that Joe mentioned. The other is that you will destroy the credibility of the company and yourself, and the shareholders will pay a price for destroying that credibility. You just cannot mislead a reporter.
Hear, hear.
Mr. Pickens, let's assume that Peachtree is a company that you've been following for a while. Maybe if Harry weren't in the picture, you might have an interest in this company.
Well, the odds are if Harry goes, the price goes up.
Because?
Because then it becomes a prospect for sellout.
Well, let me make his condition a little worse. And let's say that you have had a serious interest in this company. You get a call from somebody you've met once or twice, Desmond Gruntold. He used to work for Mr. Mercer over at Peachtree. So they had a disagreement a few weeks ago, and he was fired. And Desmond calls up and says, you know, Harry Oldman's not going to be with us for very long. People don't know this yet, but he had a very serious stroke, and the doctors are saying he may not make it through the week. Can you buy the stock after you get that phone call?
No.
Why?
You've had insider information from Des.
But why does that taint you? Why does that stop you?
Because I know something that the other stockholders don't know.
And it would be unfair to the other stockholders?
It would be, yes.
If he did buy based on that information, Mr. Giuliani? Has he got a problem?
He definitely has a problem. He certainly is going to end up with private plaintiffs suing him. He's going to end up with the SEC investigating him. He's probably going to end up, based on your hypothetical, that what you can prove that was the specific reason, and probably with those circumstantial facts you could. He's going to end up with the SEC bringing an enforcement action. And the criminal judgment as to whether to indict him is a very difficult one, and I don't know how you would decide it.
Who are we protecting by this rule that if he gets that information, he can't buy the stock based on it?
Well, ultimately, you're protecting the other stockholders who don't have that information and who are going to sell at a very different price as a result of that.
You're making the playing field even, is that it?
Absolutely, sure.
Now, Mr. Lyman, you agree with Mr. Giuliani?
Somewhat, except that I start with the proposition that every time an executive or senior executive of a public company goes to the doctor, he does not have to publish the results of his cardiogram. Even though it might have some interest to the market. I also assume that for people who see the executive, either at work or on the golf course, and reach a conclusion that he doesn't look well, that doesn't mean that they have to abstain from the market. I think in a rational system of law, it shouldn't make any difference whether you see him wheeled into the hospital or whether you find out about it from a doctor or a nurse.
I'm trying to get at, Mr. Flom, what we're protecting here.
You can't have a perfect playing field. It's never going to happen. What the law has tried to do is to say there are certain people that have a duty to the shareholders, and they should not be able to use the information they have against the interest of those shareholders where they have a duty to them. So that the insider in the company has to operate for the benefit of the shareholders and therefore not give the information out selectively.
But the insider in the company, his obligations don't extend to the doctor?
His obligations do not extend to the doctor.
Do they extend to the lawyer? If you're the lawyer for the company, do they extend to you?
They clearly extend to me as a lawyer for the company because I am in that direct chain.
Senator Wirth, do these distinctions make any sense to you?
Well, the Congress has been wrestling with this for the last 3 or 4 years, and many of us have wanted to leave this area deliberately ambiguous.
Why?
I'd rather leave it in a situation where that ambiguity is out there and management of companies and raters of companies are a little bit afraid of that, afraid that there might be a very ambitious DA out there who might go after them in some way, shape, or form, so therefore they're going to behave and stay within that ambiguous line that I think many people have talked about.
Mr. Epstein, does this make any sense to you?
It does, but not really, because what I think you're protecting is an illusion. If you can't have a level playing field, then why try to create the illusion there is one? There is an alternative.
What's the alternative?
Let the market fix the price of the stock.
Without any of these rules?
Well, with the rules that protect the duty people have to their corporation, the rules that a corporate officer or executive has to his corporation. He can't trade. His lawyers can't trade. But if someone sees someone wheeled in from a golf course, you want that information in the market.
But if Sir James gets the information from the doctor, that's okay.
Absolutely. There's no breach of fiduciary duty there.
Mr. Giuliani, you agree?
The last one is a closer question, I think, than just an absolutely no breach of fiduciary duty.
If you guess wrong about these questions that we've been discussing, you might get indicted.
Well, hopefully, if it works right, if you guess wrong, you'll get sued. And if you're deliberately wrong, you'll get indicted. That's the way it's supposed to work.
If you mean it, but when you guess wrong.
Right.
If Miss Quinn, when she found out this information about Harry Oldman, before going back to her magazine to write the story, called her broker and bought some stock, is she in any trouble?
I would say she is definitely in trouble. Again, you have to define the level of trouble.
How much trouble?
She's certainly going to be in a lot of trouble in terms of civil lawsuits from the people who claim to be on the other side of the transaction. But it sounds to me like she's seriously misusing her position as a reporter if she does that.
Ms. Quinn?
I would expect to be investigated under those circumstances. I think it's absolute. I don't know if it's illegal or not. This is still an open question, but I think it is absolutely unethical, immoral, and fattening.
Why?
Yes. No question about it. My job is to go and do the story and to publish it. I consider that inside information. I consider it totally unethical, and I think it would blow my career, among other things, even if I printed it. It's my duty to publish that information. If I then want to buy the stock, I buy the stock.
Your duty to whom?
It's my
duty.
duty.
You don't have any duty to the shareholders, do you?
I have a duty to the readers, I have a duty to the job, I have a duty to myself, and I simply think it's totally unethical and should never be done.
Professor Thoreau?
I think we're sounding all terribly Anglo-Saxon. Lots of stock markets elsewhere in the world don't have our insider trading laws or don't enforce them. And I know of no evidence that they have any more fraud than we do. And see, I would square Mr. Epstein's comments, and that is you can't make the level playing field, and therefore what you tell people is this is very unlevel, there are landmines everywhere, and Joe Sixpack doesn't have an equal chance with Warren Buffett. And anybody who tells Joe Sixpack he does is lying to Joe Sixpack. And I think these insider trading laws are basically high-level lying. They're telling the public something that isn't true, and it's more than the illusion. It really is fraud in a very high-order sense, and I think everybody here who's participating in that process is contributing to fraud. If the stock market, if nobody in the stock market had information before anybody else, a real level playing field, there would be no point having the stock market. The whole search for the stock market is to get information ahead of somebody else. That's what the ball game's about.
Mr. Giuliani, I think what he's telling you is you ought to go use your resources on drug dealers and mobsters.
But it's precisely the same thing. What he's really saying is because you can't achieve perfection, you shouldn't try and exercise some degree of control, so then let it get totally out of control.
You don't buy
it. It is absolutely
these other stock markets where they don't do this.
How do you
we're more ethical than the Japanese?
No, that's absolutely silly.
No, we are. Obviously we are.
Mr. Giuliani. What you are saying would be suggesting that because you can't stop all people from stealing, you should not have a law against stealing, you should permit everybody to steal. So then everybody could equally steal from everyone else. I mean, that's an absolutely absurd model that you're creating.
Let's move on. Mr. Pickens, let's assume that you do have an interest in Peachtree. Why are you in this business of investing in companies, taking over companies?
To make money.
That's it?
Well, that is a primary reason that you would. I see my role as one that I'm a fiduciary. I have to do the best I can with the capital I have available to me.
What do you call yourself?
I'm a geologist.
A geologist? Sir James, are you a geologist too?
I'm a grocer.
You're a grocer. Is it unfair to call you, Sir James, is it unfair to call you a raider? Is that a name you like?
That's one of the things I do.
You have any name you prefer?
You can choose a name you like.
I prefer another name.
Yes?
Large investor that sometimes becomes active.
A large investor. Sir James, when you decide what businesses to be in, though, what are the things that drive you personally?
They're quite different things. You can do something because it's a startup. You see an opportunity, you see the right group of people, and you want to back them. That is a startup, and it works or it doesn't work depending on the judgment of the opportunity and the people. But then you have the opposite thing. You have somebody's mistake of the past. And when there's somebody's mistake of the past, the market must be free to clean up that mistake. And let me explain to you what I mean. During the 1960s, the fashion was to conglomerate. That wasn't industry. The purpose of conglomeration was to build big groups by financial use of market multiples. And they couldn't do it in an integrated way because the law stopped it in antitrust, that they had to go out and conglomerate. So they created these extraordinary contraptions of multi-industry companies. They didn't
companies that did a wide range
every kind of thing.
things.
They went from making socks to making electronic engines to making aerospace to whatever you like. Anything. These conglomerates didn't work. Now, there are two ways in which you can handle that. You can either enshrine them, ossify them, make them into a monument, and all go and say, wonderful, they didn't work, but they're there, just like a monument. And then you have inefficient industry forever. Or you can say, let the market free, and let the market cleanse itself. And somebody, instead of a startup, as I was talking about before, has to go and do a re-startup, which is go in there, cleanse through market action, a structure which was wrong, liberate the pieces so that they can become valid companies, and of course make a profit at the same time.
And
that
you're
is
the
just,
cleansing
and that
agent.
is just. And that is just as constructive a thing to do as the start-off by which I started.
And you're the cleansing agent?
On some occasions.
It's like the Ajax of the corporate
And I'm
world.
also the initiator, and I am the Ajax, yes. And I believe you take over companies that need something. I do not know of a well-managed company that has been taken over by force. I only know of those that have not been good. And by the way, well-managed companies have got better because of the fear of being taken over, because they have to keep running. But if you take away that fear, they'll just go down the drain like the bad.
I want to know why you do it. Is it to clean it up? Or is it, as Mr. Pickens said, for the money? Or is it both?
Look, if I'm in business, it's for money. I hope that's the best reason for anybody to be in business, because it sounds lovely. What does a demagogue say? The demagogue will tell you that he's in business for all these constituencies of suppliers, communities, employees, and everything else. That's not true. And if it's true, it's a mistake. Whereas if you go the other way and start talking this nonsense about what we've got to do, we're in this business for our employees only, you're going to featherbed, you're going to become uncompetitive, and you're going to let them all down. It's pure demagoguery.
And while you're cleansing,
yeah,
you're going to make a little money?
I certainly am. That's the purpose I'm in business for. I'm not in religion. I'm not in politics. Though I'm not certain you don't make money in politics. I'm in business.
If you wanted just to clean it up, you'd join the Peace Corps.
I don't happen to agree with the Peace Corps, but I might join the church.
Okay. Mr. Pickens, suppose as we focus in on Peachtree, I live in Peachtree. I grew up there. I own a few shares. When you start to think about making this investment in Peachtree, perhaps taking Peachtree over, do you think about me at all?
Well, not you specifically, no.
People like me?
Yes.
Those people in Plum Valley?
Sure.
How do they...
You remember my record.
How do they...
In our offer for Phillips, I said I'd move to Bartlesville, Oklahoma. And that's a real concession.
Your job is to pursue your business interests and to use your business judgment in deciding what to do with that company if you own it. Fair?
That's fair, yes.
And if there are consequences to that town, somebody else has got to worry about it.
No.
No, sorry.
Go ahead.
That's not right.
Mr. Pickens.
No, because I think you look back over the history of the people involved. I don't think you can just categorically say that I'm interested in making the money. I don't care about the people. I don't care about the town, which is untrue.
Let's get on with our interest in Peachtree, and then we'll be able to see what the consequences might be. Mr. Pickens, you decided to go after it. Mr. Joseph here is your investment banker. Mr. Lyman's your lawyer.
They pushed me into it.
Mr. Joseph, is that conceivable?
That is conceivable.
Why?
It's part of our business.
What would you get out of it?
It would probably be a company that we were analyzing. We thought there were opportunities for it to be run better, managed better, that it would fit into his companies better. He's a client. He's probably asked us to look for acquisitions, and service investment banker performs for companies to show them acquisition opportunities in the marketplace.
What do you get out of it?
We get a fee out of it.
If he likes that idea and goes ahead?
Yes, sir.
What kind of fee?
Depends on the size of the deal. It'd be a % of the dollar amount of the
If he buys
investment.
this company, it's going to cost him $5 billion. How much is it going to cost him to get your advice?
Maybe $5 million, if he does the deal.
$5 million.
And excluding any fees we might get for raising the money for him to make the acquisition.
That's extra.
That's extra.
Now, why is that? What do you get for? What does he get for the $5 million?
First of all, it's partially our incentive to bring him the idea. Secondly, we will work with them on the strategy and tactics of how to consummate the acquisition, bring him our analytical work, give him our opinion as to the values, and if he has to dispose of some pieces, we might assist him in those dispositions.
If you raise the money, Mr. Joseph, you said that was going to cost him more. How much more?
It would be a % of the dollar amount we raise based on the market, the ongoing commissions for raising that kind of money. If it was debt, If it was high-grade debt, it might be 1%. If it was low-grade debt, it might be 3%. If it was equity, it might be 4 or 5%.
That might be a couple $100 million.
Might be, depending on the size of the deal and how much equity he's put into it.
Sir James, you've decided to go after Peachtree. Do you want to buy any Peachtree stock?
I'd probably, as the law currently stands, I would accumulate some Peachtree stock.
Why?
First, it'd have enough of a base of Peachtree stock so that if I was not the ultimate highest bidder, at least I would get back my substantial costs from the shares which I'd accumulated. That's it.
In other words, it's kind of like protecting the downside. You want to buy a little stock so you don't lose no matter what.
So that if somebody comes in and counterbids, bids more than me, thinks it's worth more, then at least I would have covered those substantial costs.
The stock is now selling for $20 a share. I take it, by the way, Mr. Lyman, there's no problem with him going out and buying a few shares.
None whatsoever.
That's not insider trading, even though he knows what he's about to do.
It's not insider trading to trade on the basis of what your own intentions are.
Mr. Giuliani, right?
Absolutely right. Yeah.
Even though what he's about to do is going to affect the market.
That's right.
If he goes ahead with this takeover.
That's right.
No problem in that at all.
Till he gets to his 5% and then has to disclose it all to the market.
That's because Congress said after you get 5%, you've got to tell the world
that's what the rule is. Congress could have said 2%, 1%, $100,000, but they said 5%.
Mr. Pickens, and how are you going to decide whether you go the next jump, whether you go over so you have to tell people that you own more than 5%?
Well, the decision would be at that point that we're going to go over the 5%, and we'll file a 13D, and we have the 10-day running time in there before we file a 13D.
The 13D is just the document you filed to tell the world that you own more than 5%.
That's right. That's what we file with the SEC and what our intentions are. And so then the strategy is how hard do you go in the 10-day running period.
And how do you decide that? I mean, what moves you to want to buy more or not to buy more?
Well, you'll you know, the market action and all is going to have some...
what the price is?
Sure.
Let's come, Sir James, to this. You want to talk to Peachtree, is that right?
That's right.
How do you do it?
I call the chairman.
Well, the chairman is...
well, the chief executive.
Still got some problems.
Chief executive.
Let's say that Mr. Beret is the chief executive.
Mm-hmm.
Call him up.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Mr. Beret, I've got some stock in your company. You probably will have noticed that there's been some buying of shares in your company recently.
Yes.
Mr. Beret, you ready to talk to him?
Surely, and I would be shocked if I was surprised because of the communications that are occurring today. Possibly Dorfman had that on his program 6 weeks ago.
Let's have the conversation.
Okay. So I said, let's meet, and we'd probably meet.
Mr. Beret, willing to meet?
Yes, we would meet.
No doubt.
Now you're meeting.
Both sides would have been briefed by their lawyers as to what could be said and what could not be said. The ground rules of such a meeting would be that everything that was said in that meeting would appear in a 13D and therefore become public knowledge. And we would have been briefed as what could and could not be said.
So, Mr. Lyman's going to help you prepare a script for this meeting?
I will be discussing with him, what do you think I should be saying, what should I avoid, where am I going into a stage where I could trap myself into becoming an insider and therefore not be able to buy more stock, and this sort of thing.
And Mr. Flom represents Mr. Beret. You going to advise him on what to do at this meeting?
Yeah, well, he's already violated the advice I've given him.
Which is, stay away from that fellow.
Which is, when you get that phone call, you ask what it's about and say, I'll get back to you. And then you call your lawyer.
You're going to tell him he shouldn't meet?
I would tell him I'd like to do some research on who the caller was. I'd like to know a lot more about what was involved. In some circumstances, I might say don't meet unless you get a standstill agreement before you meet, guaranteeing that the people...
An agreement that he won't go against you.
That he won't go against me and we'll meet in good faith. And people have entered those agreements. On the other hand, if he's already got 4.9%, I might say to Mr. Beret, look, it's too late. You're pregnant, so you may as well go find out the best way.
Does it matter who it is? Will you meet with Mr. Pickens and not with Sir James, or the other way around?
It could. There are people I would say don't meet with.
Mr. Mercer, suppose you're the chief executive. Are you ready to have this meeting after you talk to Mr. Flom and Mr. Goodfriend?
You know, like Yogi Berra said, this is deja vu all over again, because I've been down this
You mean
road.
you know one of these fellows?
I know one of these fellows, and yes, we had the meeting. And
You're
it was
ready
just-
to have the meeting?
Yes.
Okay. Let's have the meeting. Mr. Mercer, why don't we start out with you meeting with Mr. Pickens?
Now, this is the first meeting I've ever had with another CEO.
You mean because you don't seek the meeting?
Yes, I mean, but nobody ever meets with me.
So much for Amarillo.
This may be one of your real successes.
Already I've had a success.
Let's have the discussion. Mr. Pickens and Mr. Mercer.
Mr. Pickens, we've never met before, but I am delighted to get acquainted with you. I understand you're now my largest shareholder, and that's very exciting for a lot of us. Is there something you have in mind beyond the fact that you're admiring the success that we've managed to create with this corporation?
I do have something in mind.
Tell me about it.
We'd like to make an offer for your company.
And then tell me what the offer is, and then what you have in mind after you acquire the company, if that's your intent.
Let me whisper in your ear that when you get to the point of making the offer, stock selling at 20, you've decided with your advisors to make it at 30. And the question is, I want to know, is whether you're going to tell them now.
Okay. Well, at this point, I mean, I'm ready to give you my best offer. I don't care about trading. We believe you're worth $30 a share, and we're willing to pay that for it.
And then what are your intentions when you take over the company?
To run it and do a better job than you've done.
Do you have a plan that I can take to my board of directors and have them look at that?
The plan? The plan is that we want to give your stockholders $30 a share, and the stock's selling at 20. And that the plan just just know that that we're going to run the company, and we're going to pay a big price for it. You haven't been able to get the price of stock up to $30 a share.
You think I could go to my shareholders or to my board of directors and say my plan is to just do a better job?
Well, I think
and hang on to my job doing that? They wouldn't accept that in 5 minutes.
Well, I can tell you this, the owners of the company would be delighted with the $30 offer, who are the shareholders. They'll take it.
My owners, some 68,000 of them, have been very happy with the corporation.
I'm not questioning that. I'm just saying that now they have an opportunity to get a 50% premium to market, and I can tell you that they're going to take the $30 a share if they have an opportunity to make that decision.
Mr. Mercer, are you going to argue with them?
You're darn right I'm going to argue with them, because I don't see a plan that's going to be beneficial to the corporation. It's a one-time hit where we get a spike in the share price and we cash out a corporation instead of operating it as a viable entity sometime into the future.
Sir James, if you were having the meeting with Mr. Beret, would you say the same thing that Mr. Pickens did?
I would explain why I think, what I would do, what the plan would be.
You lay out the plan. Do you also tell him you're ready to pay $30?
We wouldn't be at that stage.
You wouldn't be at that stage yet?
At that stage.
At this meeting at all?
We wouldn't be at that stage at this meeting, unless he asked me.
Mr.
If
Beret?
he turned around and said it'd be different.
Mr. Bray?
Well, my reaction is that this is an information meeting, and I would be delighted to hear his plans and his articulation of his evaluation of my company, one that I possibly should know well, to determine what future plans he has, why can he optimize shareholder value with the plan that he is indicating.
And suppose, like Mr. Pickens, he then said, I want to buy your company for $30 a share. What would you say?
I don't think I would answer him. That's when I would reconvene. This is information. I would take that as information. I would talk to my counsel on both sides, obviously. Go to my board of directors and
go to your board of directors.
Discuss
Why?
in length what's happened.
You have to go to the board of directors with this?
I feel I do. That's who I work for.
Mr. Mercer?
Yes, they represent the shareholders, and I work for the board of directors.
So you get a proposal like this, you've got to call a meeting of the board of directors.
No question about it.
We're going to have that board of directors meeting right now. Mr. Flom, you're the lawyer. Mr. Goodfriend, the investment banker. The board includes the two of you. I'm out of the hospital, Harry Oldman, and I'm there in the chairman's seat. Dean Thoreau is the dean of the business school in Plum Valley, and he's on your board. Mayor Golden here. He's been a longtime supporter of your company and is also a member of the board. And let's say that Senator Worth, unfortunately, has been retired from the Senate, become the president of Plum Valley University, and he's on the board as well. You present the proposal to them. Mr. Flom, if they ask you to describe what the company's options are, what do you say?
Well, first, in these meetings, you explain to the board what their duties and responsibilities are.
What are they?
They are to consider the offer in good faith, to consider what the interests of the shareholders are, and you've got to recognize that the shareholders are not a single entity. I mean, there are all kinds of shareholders. You would point out that the investment banker will be advising them on whether this offer is fair, more than fair, or unfair. Now, you know, if somebody offers you just what your house is worth, there's no reason to sell it. If somebody offers you more than it's worth, then maybe you've got a different kind of look.
Mayor Golden, suppose you have just retired as the mayor. Still have the same interests in that plant and that community. Still have the same concerns about what Sir James's plans of making this company more efficient might mean for Plum Valley. But you're no longer the mayor, you're on the board.
I now have an institutional duty. I have a corporate duty. I have other interests as a citizen, like I have duties as a father and as a husband
That's my
and as
question.
a friend.
Can you bring those other interests to this board meeting?
Well, I'm not unmindful of them, but I recognize that the primacy of my duty is to shareholders, because that is the institutional role that I'm now discharging. And therefore, I can do nothing, in my view, to vindicate those other interests, those other roles that I play, which in any way dilutes or detracts from this institutional obligation that I have as a director.
Mr. Flom, is he right?
The answer is that he is absolutely right.
His first obligation to the shareholder.
Yes. Now, there are some states which have now passed laws saying that the board of directors can take into account other constituencies, in which case the decision-making process is different. There are some corporations which have such a provision in their charter, which again would change the thing.
Should he be able to come into that board meeting and balance the shareholders' interests against these community interests?
I think the answer is the shareholders should have the say, not the board of directors, because the board of directors is in there to mind the store, not to determine whether to sell the store ultimately.
Dean Thoreau, what should the rules be?
Well, see, I think here Boone is right. There's no evidence that if the current manager of this company gets fired because he's been incompetent, that you're going to close the local facility. And so I don't know yet that I have any conflict between my interest in the local community and my, because as a director, in some sense, I don't have an obligation to the president to preserve his job.
Mr. Buffett, if you were on this board and you were a substantial shareholder, what would you want the directors to do?
I would look at all the options for the company at that point. It would depend on the shareholder base. It would depend on other people that might be interested. It would depend on what I thought that the possibilities of the company were over a long period of time. And in the end, I would try and do the best thing for the shareholders. But
for the shareholders.
Yeah.
If I'm stipulating that the community is going to be hurt because their plans include closing that plant and they think that's a good business decision, the problem of who protects that community ought to be somewhere else, not in that boardroom. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think if you want to put it to the shareholders and say that in making your decision on whether to accept this offer, you should consider the fact that Mr. Pickens' offer closes the plant. And if we continue running it, it won't be closed, and we'd like you to vote on that.
Senator Worth, as a board member, what should your responsibility be?
I'm not on the board because I'm an investment banker or a very smart lawyer. I'm on the board because I'm president of the university and because the shareholders have some value in my being able to go to Washington and maybe foul up Boone Pickens a bit. There is also a deep relationship between Peachtree and the university and the community. And so I have an obligation, and I'm on the board not only to represent those shareholders, but also to represent the university and the community. I'm not there because I'm a financial guru. I'm there because I represent other constituencies that were referred to early on. As a result, before I go along with whatever this may be, I'm going to want to have whoever it is come in and talk to them, find out, make my best judgment as to what I think they're going to do. I think there are a variety of other values that are at stake in this as well.
So that if you could design the rules, if you could write the laws in the state or in Washington,
the laws have been written by this corporation in asking me to come on the board, and so I'm going to reflect my responsibilities not only to the shareholders, but to the community that I'm on the board to represent.
Mr. Lyman, what should they be doing in that boardroom?
I don't see how a board elected by shareholders can be expected to protect, for example, the interests of a community or the interests in diversity in the economy. That perhaps has to come from the rules of the game that are established by government, by democratic processes. I think boards have to represent the shareholders.
Senator Worth?
We have been arguing, it seems to me, for almost 100 years in this country about the responsibilities that corporations have to their communities. I mean, we have tried for a long time to get corporations more responsible. We've now done it at Peachtree. We're reaching out, supporting this university, supporting cultural activities and so on. We are the ultimate of what America believes corporate responsibility is, and you lawyers from Wall Street are coming in and telling us what to do with our community and our responsibilities. Now, we're going to make it as difficult as we possibly can for you to get this to happen.
I want to get Mr. Mercer's views on this question.
Well, first of all, I think we're missing some terms here. We keep talking about shareholder value when really what these gentlemen are talking about is price, because value is price and quality has some enduring time period to it, whereas we're talking short-term here. If you're sitting in front of a CRT and that spike comes up and you have a fiduciary responsibility to that fund that you're managing, that stock is gone. It has to be.
So what would you have the directors, or what should the rules be?
Well, the rules currently are that the directors have to look at after the interests of the shareholder. And with that interest, I say that we have to have a plan that means that the corporation will survive, will become more competitive, will increase jobs, and enhance its value over a period of time, and not just in one-shot price. So we have to compare plans.
By the way, Mr. Buffett, as this fight begins to unfold, who are the shareholders? Have they changed?
If the news is public, if
the
they
news
file
is
the
now
13D,
out, the fight is on.
It's changed in a hurry.
In what way? Who owns Peachtree now?
Well, the price, if the price has been announced as 30, it will either be selling even somewhat above 30 on the speculation that a better bid will be forthcoming, or it'll be selling very close to 30.
And who are the owners?
The owners will be changing very quickly in very large part to arbitrage firms.
What is an arbitrage firm?
Well, an arbitrage firm or an arbitrage department of a firm it's an activity that involves going into announce deals, propose deals, transactions to take over companies, to profit between the difference between what the anticipated final selling price is and what the current price is.
In other words, the professional investors are increasingly the owners of Peachtree.
And those people will take very big positions for what they hope will be very short periods of time, and they hope to profit between the present market price and the deal price. And the present market price will have advanced a lot, and that will tend to cause many of the people who were sitting at 20 to sell at 28 or 29 or 30.
Let's assume that the board, after this discussion, here's an opinion from Mr. Goodfriend that the $30 is inadequate. Now the question is, how do you fight it? And you gather together your team again. Mr. Flom, what are their options?
Well, you have a number of possibilities. First, you got to decide whether you can recast the company in terms of making a self-tender, acquiring shares.
Buying some of your own shares?
Buying some of your own shares.
To buy in your own shares. In other words, whether you can compete with them by going yourself directly to the shareholders.
That coupled with what kind of operating economies you can effectuate. That's one alternative.
In other words, get into an economic contest with them for the hearts and minds of the shareholders.
And the dollars.
And the dollars. What else?
The company can consider whether it wants to run an auction and decide to be sold to the highest bidder.
Anything else?
Yes. You can enter into an agreement with a third party to buy a percentage of your stock when, say, it's a blocking position on an economic basis, which is satisfactory.
How about anything with them?
Which gives you a chance to realize the long-term values that you see. Now,
what about dealing with them?
You could decide to deal with them, and the decision of dealing with them covers the whole thing. You could try to buy them out, which is what is commonly called greenmail.
What's called greenmail?
Buying them
their
out.
shares?
Yes.
By paying them more than they could get and selling it in the market?
That's correct.
That's
or,
greenmail.
in some cases, by paying them what they can get in the market because the market is artificially high based on the announcement that they're going to pay $30 for the company.
Well, no, sir, I don't agree with anything here. We're living in a time warp. This is a conversation we could have had 2 years ago or a year ago. It is nothing to do with the situation as it exists today. And Joe Flom is one of the best lawyers in the world and knows it as well as I do. How do you defend today? You don't defend on economic grounds. You don't defend on being able to get a better offer. You defend by being able to go to Washington and to be able to get the Senate and the Congress, either who believe in the sort of stuff that Senator Worth believes in, which he's just talked about, which is a pastoral America with a little company and the church and the university, and the whole thing is going to stay there and be there forever, and that they don't have to compete with anybody, and that competition is awful, and totally mixing up. Wait a minute, totally mixing up. This is the fundament. The difference between doing business and doing good. Doing business is what gives you the fuel to do good. Don't mix them up. The bee doesn't make honey because he's doing good. He doesn't have soul searching, am I doing good when I make honey? And he's confusing it, and that's why this country is losing its vigor.
Mr. Mercer, is he describing your strategy?
No, I've got a problem with that whole thing. We do have to go to Washington to make sure that they maintain states' rights, because the states have the
so you can go to the state legislature
so we
to
can
stop
go to
them.
the state legislature and talk about a specific
Is
program.
he right that you're going to go to
law in the state
Is he right that you're going to go to the
politicians
politicians to stop them?
You have to determine whether or not you want to maintain an economic base in this country or let it get eroded by people who want to come in and buy you out with your own assets and break up the company and have it disappear so you become a second, third, or fourth-rate country. I don't think we can allow that to happen.
And that's a political debate you want to have with
It's more than a political
Senator Worth?
debate. It's an economic debate, and it's an economic fact of life. Now, I understand where Mr. Goldsmith is coming from, and he comes in as a self-appointed savior of our economy. But we are competitive, and we are internationally competitive, and the only way we stay that way is through reinvestment in research and development in new plant facilities, and if we have to spend all of our money in fending off attacks, we're not going to be around to do that.
I must answer that attack. What I was trying to do is to make it abundantly clear what happens in a board meeting, which you were pretending to have just now.
Yes.
And you were living in a charade, nonsense, nothing to do with reality. When a company such as this gets under trouble, it sends its lawyers to its state legislature, it drafts the law. It doesn't leave it to the legislators, it drafts it. Their own firm of lawyers drafts it. It gets it through that legislature, it does a deal with the governor to sign it as it comes out. It is a political contest. And all this other stuff is a load of eyewash.
Do you go to the legislature to block this, as Sir James says?
What I would do is to turn that around in my community, have an interview with Ms. Quinn, get that out right away, and I would have so many outraged people in the state of Minnesota or in this particular community that they would be setting you up to run you out of town on a rail.
We have come to a point where Harry is still pressing the idea that if only we explain our long-term prospects to the shareholders, they'll support us and vote for us, and these people will go away. So we've got another board meeting, and Harry is there once again saying, what we ought to do is make our case, persuade people. This research program is what's important to this company and this country. And I don't want to hear you talk anymore about these ideas that Mr. Flom is raising, about buying in the shares or selling part of the company or cutting costs to compete with the offer. I don't want to hear any of that. I want to see us make our case and win this battle on the merits, as I see them. Mr. Mercer, you're convinced that that will not work. What do you do?
You know, I know that you're not going to go to arbitrageurs who have over 20% of your shares and give them that kind of a story. They just want to
You know it doesn't work.
It does not work. I'm going to ask Harry to listen to his advice that he's getting from the professionals that we've brought in who know what this business is all about on
Mr.
takeovers.
Flom, Mr. Goodfriend.
And you ought to listen to them. Well, Harry's getting a little long in the tooth,
sure
and
is.
I think we may have to have another meeting about Harry.
Well, I'm getting
Mr. Mercer says you're going to have another meeting with whom?
Harry's gone.
Yeah,
Harry's gone, Mr.
Let's not
Goodfriend.
waste a lot of time on this.
Yeah,
Mr. Goodfriend?
Harry's gone.
Harry's gone.
Yeah.
What do you mean? He just outvoted. I created this company. I started it in my backyard.
Harry, you did a wonderful job. You were great in your time. I'm very sorry. I know you're going to hate me forever, but that's life.
It's a gold watch or a gold airplane. And
You already got your gold watch out of this company, Harry. You own 48% of the shares. You're a very rich man. I'm sorry, but we've got to do it.
The board's going to throw him out?
Yes.
Mr. Epstein, you're on the board? Going to throw him out?
Well, I think there's a very deep corruption here because people on the board, on your hypothetical board, have been using the pronoun our company as if they own the company, and then using the resources of the company to go to Congress listening to the strategies so that they could preserve the company, and using the rhetoric of altruism to hide their personal interest. I can't, if you're asking an ethical question, you know, ethics has been lost a long time ago. It's just a question of a tactical strategy for surviving.
But is it fair to throw Harry out because he wants to make his pitch on the merits, and these people all say, you're an old goat, you don't know, it won't work?
Fairness had nothing to do with it.
What does? Mr. Goodfriend, if it's not fairness, what are we talking about?
In terms of the strategy of running this company at this time, Harry is extraneous. There's no way you can turn the clock backward. Now, whether this management is improved and does its own job, or whether it's taken over by somebody else, that's the issue. Those are the issues.
But Harry's gone.
Harry is gone because we really can't afford to waste a lot of time arguing with Harry about how it used to be.
We're now down to the point where the options as we see them are some of the options you described before. Buying in the shares, getting the cash, giving a special dividend to the shareholders, getting the cash either by drastic cuts in the expenses.
Right.
Cut the research program, reduce some of the benefits, cut some wages if you can, maybe close a plant or two that's inefficient. Shrink down the company. How do you approach that decision? Mr. Goodfriend?
Pretty straightforwardly. You look at the record, you look at the people you have in place, you go through the numbers retrospectively and prospectively, and you decide what can you excise to make this a more efficient business, period. That is given to the management. The management presents that to the board argues about it, they discuss it, and then they do what they go on about their business.
They choose one of the options.
They choose probably two or three. They probably combine them. They probably both have cutbacks, salary reductions, closing of obsolete plants. And in terms of if they decide one of these things, this long-range strategy, is worth paying for, they'll stick with it.
Mr. Buffett, if they wind up adopting one of these options, have they done anything different than Mr. Pickens or Sir James would?
Frequently, they would not be doing much different. They would have rated themselves, in effect.
Professor Thoreau?
Well, see, I think the mistake here is to kind of act like one side is good guys and the other side is bad guys. I don't think there are any good guys or bad guys in this ball game at all.
We just saw that they would do the same thing.
Right, absolutely. And see, that's what all the analysis indicates, that 10 to 15 years later, the companies involved in this kind of behavior look exactly like the companies who weren't involved in this kind of behavior. Their stock doesn't outperform the market anymore on average. Their productivity doesn't grow any faster on average. And so in some sense, you really are playing a management ball game. It makes a lot of difference who manages these companies to the guy who are actually managing them. But if you ask, does it make much difference to the American GNP, the answer is no, with the exception of, are you attracting so much talent into this activity? I mean, there's most people around this table are in this activity, and there are some very brainy people here, and maybe there would have been something they could have done better for the American economy than the activity they're actually in.
Like what?
They might actually have gone out and invented a new product, built it, a new service, lots of other things they can do.
Mr. Joseph, is he right?
Basic assumption's wrong.
Why?
He's wrong.
Why?
First of all, I don't think that we've got any good evidence. You go back 10 or 15 years ago and you don't have the restructurings to look at. What you had 15 years ago was the conglomeration, and we all agree.
15 years ago, people like yourself told us we're making a better economy, and you can objectively say they didn't. And so then the question is, today you tell me you're going to make a better economy, but how do we know that's true? It isn't true simply because you say it.
Mr. Joseph?
I think it's going to be better. It's a judgment call, and you don't know. We're talking about the future. My guess is it's going to be better.
Mr. James?
Well, I think we've proven it here. Listen to what the strategy was. The strategy, the words being used by John Goodfriend, the banker to this company. Cut out the extra overhead. Cut out the companies that are unnecessary. Close the obsolete factories.
That's what you want them to do.
That was the defense. Now, what happens if there's no one there to prod that defense? Supposing all these managements were enshrined, that no one, you could never get rid of them. They were totally entrenched. Why would they ever have to do that? The only reason that board has considered these things, which they've been paid to do for years, is because they're under attack. Take away, as our politician friends want to do, the capacity to attack, and those fellows will never do it. And you'll have more and more obsolete factories, and you'll have more and more overheads, and you'll become more and more uncompetitive, and you'll want to devalue more and more to get competitive.
And the plant in Plum Valley, and the people who work there?
If it's a good plant, and it's working efficiently, it will remain and become a better plant, because you will have done a remarkable thing, which is marry management and capitalism. Our friend Mr. Berry over there said he was a major shareholder in his company. He is. He was a professional manager, and he's a hell of a lot better professional manager today now that he's a capitalist at the same time. And that marriage is the greatest life-giving thing economy can have.
And if you decide that that plant is inefficient, and after you buy the company you close it?
Then you have to close it, either modernize it, either make it efficient, or if you can't make it efficient, of course it's got to be closed.
And who deals...
What are you running, a charity or business?
Mr. Beret,
well, I think you've presented an enormous dilemma for the CEO of Peachtree, and for me. I was trained that a corporation was a guest in the society to present quality goods at a reasonable cost. We were not trained to react to financial markets and such. We were trying to find a balance between long-term and short-term. We were trying to be sensitive to our communities because we generally believed that that would optimize our profits by reacting to those particular needs. Now I have to have the sea a change. I'm in this boardroom. The fact is we must change. And it's imperative now that we find the best solution. And I'm not so sure I would accept Sir James' offer. And I'm not so sure I would accept buying back stock, and I'm not so sure I would restructure the company. But at this juncture, the street is telling us that the trader or the short-term investor prevails, and therefore it's my duty to react to that. As difficult as it's going to be, it must be done.
The pivotal concept in the dialogue we've just heard was that of fiduciary. A fiduciary duty is defined as one of trust and confidence, one person acting in the best interest of those he or she represents. Boone Pickens and others argue that corporate management has a fiduciary duty to maximize profits for a corporation's stockholders. Senator Wirth and other panelists argued just as vehemently that a board member's fiduciary duty extends to employees and the community as a whole. In the 1980s, this is an ethical dilemma that must concern all Americans. Next week, we begin the first of two programs that explore life and death decisions and military ethics. Join us for Under Orders, Under Fire.
This has been a production of Columbia University Seminars on Media and Society in association with WNET, New York. Columbia University Seminars on Media and Society is solely responsible for the content of this program. With additional support from Equicor Equitable HCA Corporation, the Good Listening Employee Benefits Company.
Annenberg Media. For information about this and other Annenberg Media programs, call 1-800-LEARNER and visit us at www.learner.org.